Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Etiquettes of Salaat. Part 11, First Discourse, Chapter 10, Inviting one to acquire focus of the heart. Now here Imam, for the first time, is going to start to enter some of the practical particular points that are relevant in order to be able to acquire focus of the heart. In all those traditions, in all those maxims from the disciples and saints of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where they give you certain prescriptions, certain rites and rituals to perform, it's all based on you having focus of the heart, hudoor ul-qalb. In order for you to benefit from those prescriptions, rites and rituals, you need focus of the heart. Otherwise it will be spiritless, even if it be accepted from a fiqhi dimension before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is important, this focus of the heart that we want to acquire, inshallah. Let's start with the first few paragraphs, which are also still descriptive to some extent. Imam still doesn't go into the particularities from the very beginning. Halfway through the chapter he starts. Anyway, Imam says, now that you have acknowledged the virtues and specific features of focus of the heart from a rational and textual angle, in the last few chapters we've been speaking on the virtues, the specific features and characteristics of having focus of the heart, hudoor ul-qalb. We've discussed it from a rational aspect, when he gave many examples in order for us to digest the rational understanding of it. Then the textual angle from the verses of the Holy Quran, traditions from the Ahlul Bayt. And also, now you've acknowledged the harms of not undergoing focus of the heart, one of them being you just doing spiritless actions with no benefit whatsoever. This mere knowledge, though, will not suffice, Imam says. You need to complete the proof that is before you in more complete terms. Increase your endeavors. Make your knowledge practical so that you can really benefit from it. Now, where can we start? Imam says, still hasn't started with the practical points, but still, we're slowly getting there now. If you're listening to this, if you have, for example, a piece of paper and pencil beside you, and if you can create your own systematic those classifications of how Imam goes through this mechanism of acquiring focus of the heart, you can build something useful for yourself. Not just writing whatever I say, but the main points you formulate it in a particular either diagram, chart, some way that you can easily explain it to others or digest it yourselves. So Imam first says, deliberate, think from the treasures of revelation that speak of the Salat's acceptance, and say that the Salat's acceptance is a prerequisite to all other actions. Think about it. We have treasures of revelation. All those traditions from the Ahlul Bayt, 250 odd years of treasures we have, explaining the esoteric dimensions of the Holy Quran. These traditions say that the acceptance of one's Salat, spirituality-wise, is a prerequisite to all other actions being accepted. That's premise A. And those traditions, it speaks of the fact that if one's Salat isn't accepted, then they won't take a look at your other actions anymore, as if they're all futile. You won't go to hell necessarily. I'm not speaking about heaven and hell now. We're just speaking about the Salat being accepted or not from a spirituality angle. So Imam says, first, with this premise A, let's call it, deliberate over this. Think over it in your own quiet solitude. Think. Even if it's a few minutes a day. Have this. Put this time, assign this time for yourself. Look at how much you give priority to work, university, this certificate, that certificate. It's all about me, this. At least a few minutes a day, do a bit of thinking for God's sake, for His sake. Next, okay, after premise A, next, although Imam doesn't say premise A, I'm trying to speak commentate a simple language so all types of listeners can understand. Next, deliberate over those traditions that state that the Salat's acceptance is dependent upon the focus of one's heart, and without the latter, the value and worth of the Salat will be abolished, implying that one no longer is deserving to be in the presence of Allah. Okay, that's premise B. Think about it. Deliberate over this. Does it move you? Do you care? If you don't care, you have to go way back. It's too early. Spiritual wayfaring for you is way too early. Go back from the beginning. Don't fool yourself. Because if you do, you'll just be wasting yourself moment to moment. If on these deliberations you don't tick inside, you don't move an inner movement within you, you don't shed it here, you don't, move in an internal movement, it's too early. Don't go to step B. Don't start, no. Go back. It's too early for you. All this, premise A and premise B, are from the traditions that we saw in the previous chapter. To conclude from these two premises, therefore, the key to the chest of actions and to the gate of gates to all forms of happiness is the focus of the heart, hudoor ul-qalb. With it, one opens up one's salvation, and without it, all one's ibadat are worthless. Okay, this much we've covered already, but Imam has rephrased it in another way. So now, think for a while on the significance of the station of Salat and become committed to executing it as it should be done. The key to the doors of salvation and heaven, or the doors of wretchedness and hell, are in your pockets. The reins of this matter and these matters are in your hands. Allah has completed His proof over us. The Prophets and Imams have acted in perfection before us, showing us the way in its entirety. Now it's our turn. Use your capital, use your youth, your younger age, maximally. It won't return. It can't be compensated, your age. If you're young, don't delay things to an old age. There are burdens and hurdles, Imam says, in old age that the elderly are aware of, but you are ignorant. It's very difficult to reform oneself in one's advanced years or during one's years of weakness and frailty. And if you are of old age, don't let the rest of your years slip by. After all, you are still in this world. And so the doors of salvation by default are still open before you. God forbid the day, Imam says, when all is closed and you have accumulated nothing but regret and remorse for what you have done. Okay. After fully appreciating the significance of acquiring focus of the heart, start the journey. Now this is the practical journey. Up to now, everything was a preliminary to these practical prescriptions that he's about to give. But first you have to do all those preliminary actions. Assuming you've done them, now start. If you start prematurely, you'll waste yourself. And don't blame me. I'm not going to accept any blame. I'm giving you Imam's words here in English for you to benefit. But if you're not benefiting and just looking at this as an academic exercise without acting upon it, it's of no use to you. And if you don't practice it and don't do the preliminaries and go straight to step, let's say 10, without going the preliminaries, then you're going to be wasting yourself. You'll never succeed like that. And then you'll have no one to blame but yourself. Now it's getting to very important domains now. The way to acquiring focus of the heart involves, Imam says, two things. First, eliminate the impediments to focus of the heart. Eliminate the impediments of hudoor ul-qalb, and to uproot the thorns along the spiritual path. So in the first step, you have to eliminate the impediments, those thorns along the spiritual path which act as an impediment to you acquiring hudoor ul-qalb. Impediments to you acquiring focus of the heart. And secondly, you execute focus of the heart itself. 2 steps. Now we're going to go into step 1. Imam says the impediments to hudoor ul-qalb in one's ibadat are tantamount to the mind's disarray and haphazard nature and its multiplicity of thought processes. This disarray and this lack of mental focus, which is the impediment to hudoor ul-qalb, can be a result of 2 things: external things and inner causes. In relation to those impediments, which are that mind being in total disarray, that haphazard nature of the mind with all its thought processes jumping from one thought to another thought and so on and so forth, this disarray, which is an impediment to hudoor ul-qalb in one's ibadat, it is a result of 2 things. First, external things, external causes that lead to this disarray, which in effect lead to you not having hudoor ul-qalb. It's the senses and things outside you, or the physical senses. By way of example, one's ears hear something in Salaat. So you're in Salaat, and your ears, your physical organ, hears something, and then you become distracted by it. This itself, this hearing one little thing, acts as a source to imaginative images and thought processes. Then these thought processes becoming altered, being made up, ultimately jumping from branch to branch, image to image, thought process to thought process, scenario to scenario, haphazardly, randomly. All these mental transitions arise with all the senses, the eyes too, ears, nose, all these senses. When you smell something, the burning of food, for example. When you're doing prayer, you smell burning of food. Or you smell someone's perfume. Or you hear a noise. The noise says something. That statement makes the mind now jump from scenario to scenario, process to process, haphazardly, randomly. All this mental disarray, mental confusion, mental jumping from here to there, A to B, from Rome to America, from America there, this incident, from that person's house to this person's house, everything. It's all muddled up. What was the cause? You heard something, you smelled something, you saw something whilst in prayer. This is mental disarray. It's an impediment to hudoor ul-qalb. It's number 1. And it's this mental disarray comes through 2 things. The first is things that from outside you sense. Now this was step 1 in acquiring focus of the heart. What was it? You have to get rid of these impediments. Okay, thank you. You've told us what we have to do. You have to eliminate the impediments. You've told us what the impediments are. Yes, that disarray. You've told us now that this disarray results from 2 causes. The first being things outside you, or the physical organs, like the ear, nose, and so on and so forth. Okay, but now can you tell us the cure? You've told us that this mental disarray comes from the first class was the external things and the external organs, and this mental disarray which comes from those senses. Can you give us a cure then? How can we cure this so that from our ears, our nose, our eyes, and other things outside us, it doesn't lead to our mental disarray. And then, in effect, it won't affect our hudoor ul-qalb. Can you tell us what we have to do? What's the cure? Imam says, concerning its cure and solution, some of the Urafa have said, it's eliminating the causes. That which the ears and the eyes sense, eliminate them. Such as standing in Salaat, but in a dark room, totally alone, for example. Or shutting one's eyes. And then he mentions from Shahid al-Sani, the second martyr, who was a very important Shia who became martyred many years ago. A lot of the works of the seminaries today in Qom and Najaf are his works. In one of his works, he attributes to certain disciples, Shia disciples, or Muslim disciples, who said that they would pray in a dark house, and this dark house has room only for someone to pray in it, and nothing else. And they would go there and pray. You see, it must be very small, and it's dark, you can do nothing else there. But Imam says, he said, some people say this. Some people have given this as the cure. However, Imam then says, but it is evident that this method cannot eliminate the impediments and uproot the basis to the problem. Why? Because the main criterion or impediment is the working of the imaginative mind, which does its job with the slightest particular trigger. Sometimes, Imam says, one may be in a small dark room, but the mind can still play even more games and bring around more distractions. You keep on focusing. This cure that some people have said, they focus on the outside, but Imam is saying the cure is within. The problem and cure should be sought within rather than concentrating external to oneself. So the main solution pertains to reforming the imaginative mind and not really going into just a dark room. Now, Imam then alludes to this later, because he says this is not a cure by you just shutting your eyes or going into a dark room. Not to say it's totally worthless, later he'll say this, but he wants to say that this isn't the cure though. This isn't the definitive cure and solution to the problem. He said the problem is within. You have to reform the imaginative mind. How? Later. He'll come to this later. So he still hasn't given the answer yet. He's given many answers. He hasn't given the ultimate answer. How do we reform the imaginative faculty of the mind, of the eye? How do we do this? Now this is important because it's a solution to this first step in acquiring focus of the heart. It's a step in eliminating the impediments to focus of the heart. Okay. Now, what has been said up to now in relation to the cure, this going into the dark room and everything, it may help some people. There's no denying that. But we're looking for a definitive solution. We're looking for a permanent solution. Okay, so how do we reform the imaginative mind? Later. It comes later. I think it comes in the next chapter. And then sometimes this mental disarray, which is an impediment to focus of the heart, is a result of inner causes, not the outer senses or things outside you. It's a result of inner causes. And these inner causes can be broadly categorized into two things. A and B. A speaks of this bird of imagination, this imaginative faculty. It's so escaping in nature. It has such a loose nature that it's very escaping, constantly moving from branch to branch. Then Imam says, love of the dunya and attentiveness to worldly matters, one's capital and attentiveness to prestige, etc., is not related wholly to this haphazard nature of the imaginative faculty. Don't get mixed up here. Love of the dunya, yes, it is an impediment. We'll come to that later. But now we're focusing on this escaping and haphazard nature of the imaginative faculty. Before it was through the physical senses, but even outside, things outside you, still. That's why he's categorized it into external and internal causes. Now we're focusing on the internal causes. There are two broad categories. The first is now concerning this imaginative faculty of the eye, concerning this imaginative mind of the eye. Imam claims that, look, this imaginative faculty, it's too escaping. It's too loose in nature. It keeps jumping constantly. It's constantly at work. It never sleeps. The body may sleep, the physical body may sleep, the vegetative body, but this mind never sleeps. Even when you're asleep in bed, this mind is jumping from subject to subject. It's incredible. And it's haphazard sometimes. Although there's always a link between when it jumps from scenario A to scenario B to scenario C. It's not purely random or haphazard. There's a link between scenario A and B. But the smallest link makes the mind make that transition. And then Imam says, look, don't look at the love of the dunya and the love and the attentiveness of your one's capital, prestige, and so on and so on. That's not related to this haphazard nature and of the imaginative faculty. And Imam claims that he claims this because he says, look, the ascetic and the shunner, the true shunner of the world, they may easily be afflicted with the escaping nature of the imaginative faculty. Good grief. Now look, Imam is analyzing this microscopically here. Even the shunner of the world, one who abandons the whole world, the true ascetic, even they may experience and be easily afflicted with this escaping nature of the imaginative faculty. So what do we do then? And then Imam says we shall allude to how composure and tranquility of the mind, so that this escaping and loose nature be obliterated, and that one's imaginative faculty now is in tranquility and composure. He says we'll allude to this later. So look, so far with the external causes and with A amongst the internal causes, they're both to do with the imaginative faculty. So in the next chapter, it's all about how to reform the imaginative faculty of the eye so that it doesn't keep on jumping around, irrespective if there's something outside you or not outside you. Because it doesn't matter if something is outside you or not. We're looking for a definitive way here. Don't just go in a dark room. These are just transitory, temporary solutions. We want a definitive solution. In relation to the external causes, and in relation to this first class of the internal causes, they both stem from this imaginative faculty being too escaping, and the cure is to tame and to discipline and to reform one's imaginative faculty so it doesn't jump around from one place to one place mentally. Can we do that? Yes. Imam tells us how. That's the solution to having a hudoor ul-qalb. But he still hasn't told us how to do this. That's in chapter 11. And then the second group, the second class of things which lead to that mental disarray and which act as an impediment to that hudoor ul-qalb, he says another of the inner causes to a misarranged mind is the love of the dunya and affinity to the worldly matters. It is different to the other one. That was just the imaginative faculty. That's the main basis here. This is something else. They're not totally mutually exclusive, but Imam wants you to concentrate on two different dimensions here, appreciating that these two are two mutually exclusive realms. At the same time, they both have the same objective in mind, though. In the second class, he says, look, the love of the dunya and the affinity to the worldly matters, this is the root to and the mother of all inner illnesses. And Imam says, as long as the heart is attached to such matters and is drowned in the dunya's love, the path to reforming the heart and thus salvation is closed. And we shall pay attention to these causes, A and B, amongst the inner causes, in the next two chapters. Now someone will say, well, what about the first class of impediments with respect to the eyes and the ears? Well, look, 2 chapters remain. In those impediments which was via the eyes and the ears, that was also ultimately in relation to the imaginative faculty. So was the first class amongst the inner causes. So in the next chapter, it tells us how to reform the imaginative faculty. That's one solution. And he tells us how to do it. And if you do it, you get hudoor ul-qalb. And in the last chapter, he tells you how to sort out and to reduce this love of the dunya. And when you do these 2, you have hudoor ul-qalb. And that's the whole purpose of the next 2 lectures, inshallah, the next 2 sessions, which will be chapter 11 and chapter 12. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى الطاهرين.